God is love, fellas.
Amen.
Today we're here with Chuck Scarborough.
Welcome to the Brotherly Love Podcast.
Good to be here.
Is it Charles or Chuck?
Charles is my dad.
Charles is your dad.
So I'm Charles Jr., so I'm go by Chuck.
Chuck, we are glad to have you. Chuck is the director of the Georgia School of Preaching. Let's make sure that microphone is good and close to you.
We'll follow it around.
That way we can pick you up. Closer you get to it, the clearer that it is. So, Chuck is not only the director of the School of Preaching, but he's also a member here at Piedmont Road.
Yes.
Thankfully. It's great to have him in and out on a regular basis here at Piedmont Road. Chuck, we've been talking about preaching in yesterday episode or last week's episode, whenever we put this out, however it turns out. We have been discussing preaching. We had 7 different things we talked about preaching yesterday and what it needs to be, what it's not. The preacher needs to be this. People don't need to put much stock into preachers and, preacher worship. They need to put more stock in the word. And is it truth? Is it, how do we know it's truth? And, when you get away from the mindset of 1 Corinthians 1, Cephas, Paul, all these sorts of divisions and, because there's preacher followers. We're here in Atlanta. Have you ever heard anybody say, I go to Andy Stanley's church?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of those sorts of things. So we don't want that because Jesus is the message. Chuck, you have been the director for how long now?
It goes on 2 years this month, as a matter of fact. 2 years this month.
2 years this month.
Good deal.
You also preach and preached.
I preached, yes.
Yep, and you were you went to Freed Hardeman.
I went to Freed Hardeman, yes.
Yep, which is the coffee mug that I'm drinking from today. Thank you, Freed Hardeman.
Free advertising.
Yeah, and so if you were to, why do we need more preachers? Why is there a school of preaching, and not just preachers, but also the biblical studies aspect of the school? Why do we need that? You would think, if you were to give a good defense for why we need the school, what do you think that would be?
I think what you're mainly trying to do is there are many different ways of learning. Not only are there 4-year institutions like Freed Hardeman and Faulkner and Heritage and all of these guys, but you also have 2-year preaching schools like Memphis School of Preaching, Georgia School of Preaching, Georgia School of Theology down in Warner Robins, a couple of different places. And I think what you're doing is you're basically giving folks more options than they probably have ever had in their entire life. To learn the word. Now this is all in addition to what they would normally receive from being a member of a congregation that gives them biblical sermons and Bible classes and all of this. But this is just an option to get more in different ways from different perspectives and backgrounds. And I think that's one of the main reasons that we have stuff like this is so that there were just more options, kind of like podcasts versus what we used to have in the past.
Yeah, it's like when some folks say that Bible study goes to die in the Bible class, in the auditorium because you have so many people with different thoughts and views.
Yeah.
There's some things that you can't teach on in a regular Bible class because somebody will say, "Who is Herman and why do we care about his Udix?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that word ain't in my Bible and. And that's just where people are, not mocking it, but the disciples of Jesus couldn't hear certain things at certain times. Sure. More's coming later down the pike, and it's not right now. You can't hear it now. Yeah. Even when God gave the 10 Commandments, He hid Moses' face from losing its shinery, because Paul talks about it. They would begin to lose and discredit Moses and the glory that was on his face because they weren't at a spiritual stage where they could receive things. I'm a huge proponent of the school. Y'all have David Decker at Oak Hill.
Yes, we do.
Who was the
Very
director
grateful.
for 20 plus years, I guess. Is that right?
Yeah.
But to have which we're a satellite campus now and all that, and got Dan Winkler coming. Beyond excited for that.
Yeah. Dan could sell ketchup popsicles to a lady in white gloves. Just the way he is. That's an old Chris Farley reference. Or was it Chris Farley?
It was.
It was. Okay. But anyway, but Dan's that way. He's the great expositor. He does all that. So if people are listening to this and they say, well, I can't afford the time. I have a family and 37 kids. I can't pick up and move and go to Siebes and Knoxville. I can't go to Bear Valley in Colorado, which the view I think would be great, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't relocate, but what can I do?
Well, that's another reason that the school is such a great thing. It gives an option for folks that honestly feel that they don't have an option. And I wonder how many men over the years have been discouraged from pursuing a preaching certificate because the option was not there for an attendance or for the ability to go to a school where you didn't have to pack up your wife and your 37 kids and load the bus down and
I think they got 38. One's on the way now.
There's probably, I was going to say, if they've got 37, there's probably one in the oven. So they didn't have that option. And what do? You pack up, you quit your job, you try to get support for a whole family. Now, and that's not to say that the Brotherhood hasn't been very good at supporting men going to preaching schools, but it's not always an option for folks. You go someplace, say your wife has a job where she provides health care, health insurance for the family, and I can't give that up because with I've got this and she's got this and the kids got this and all this kind of stuff. And you just don't have that option. So in their wisdom, the way that the school of Georgia School of Preaching is set up is that you don't have to go anywhere. We have 11 campuses all over the state. Again, one in coming to Oak Hill, which is we're really excited about on that side of the town. It's all a town. Atlanta basically takes up the northern half of Georgia, and the half it's in Villa Rica, and the other half is close to South Carolina. But you don't have to do that. You can take classes here. You can take classes at this campus, and virtually all of them are live streaming now. Or recorded for future reference, and you can take your time. You can go to work, come home, help feed the kids, then get yourself a cup of coffee, plant yourself in front of the computer, and join in live stream with one of the brethren in Avondale, who's talking about expositing Revelation, and you get to sit there and participate in that with all the other folks that are maybe taking it at the same time. You work at your own pace.
Yeah.
And then, 2-3 years of taking part-time classes, sometimes 2 or 3 classes at a time, we get you on stage and we give you a preaching certificate that you've worked as hard as anywhere else that you ever worked, because you're going to work regularly and you're doing the work of a student afterwards. And it's a proud moment for any time we can do something like that.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. And if let's say that I'm ready to hit that button and do it right now.
Yeah.
What do I need to do right now for someone?
If you are interested, if you are truly interested, and I will say this, we have a lot of folks that they're interested in, they're really interested in increasing their Bible knowledge, and they come aboard as wanting to do Bible. I just want to learn more about Bible. I want to take some Bible classes. And what happens is they realize, this has stirred something in me, and the fire's in my bones, and I can't quench it. So I really want to preach. And they say, well, what do I need to do to be a preacher? Well, this answers both of those questions. If you want to learn more about the Bible, or if you're interested right now in becoming a preacher, and you cannot this is what you want to do, and you don't want to pack up and move, this is what you do. You go to our website, which is gsoponline.org. And right now, we have just finished up our spring semester. And our fall semester, we've already got some classes that are going to be, we're going to be adding those to our fall semester calendar slate. So you can go there and you can go ahead and fill out the enrollment form at gsoponline.org. And come probably last part of July, your instructor and your campus director is going to contact you and say, okay, our classes start Tuesday, August, whatever. And they will be from 6 to 8:30 or 6:30 to 9 or whatever it may be. And this will be your Zoom link. If you can come join us in person, that's always the best way.
Yeah.
But you know what? That doesn't work for everybody. Half of the classes I took for GSOP, I took online. Half of them I came and sat in on the class with everybody else. But that's essentially what you'll do. This is what you're going to need. You're going to need this. You're going to need this translation of Scripture. This is what the instructor is going to use. This is your commentary that you're going to need to purchase. And by the way, there are no tuition costs. There's no cost to come to the school whatsoever. The only thing that you might have to spend is to buy a commentary or a workbook that will be specifically for that class, but you will be able to use a little bit later on in your ministry.
Yeah.
Build yourself a small library right off the bat, and then you just wait, and when the class time comes, you come and sit in and enjoy and get fed, and in turn, by the way, you feed other people by your presence and your commentary in class.
Yeah, I know the last thing I was going to say was, if you're interested, come and sit and listen.
Yes.
I know you don't obviously come and try it out.
Yes.
I sat in one of Dan's classes one time, and I thought,
Yeah, because you can just audit. You don't have to take
Yeah.
the test and all that,
Yeah.
get accreditation.
I was
Absolutely.
like, why haven't I been doing this earlier and
Yeah.
all this stuff?
And even like if you're a retired old lady, you know, you can still come to the classes, and you don't receive a preaching certificate. What do you receive, Chuck?
Well, as a matter, just since you brought that up, this year at our lectureship, which is going to be held at the Fayetteville campus, by the way, on May 25th, we have one graduate that we know of yet. We're still trying to find out, working through grades, see if anybody else. But we have a lady that is a member over at the Avondale congregation. She is 74, 75, and she is getting her certificate in biblical studies. So she's been pecking away at it for quite some time, and she's amassed enough credits. But again, you do not have to do anything for credit. If you simply want to come and sit and listen and take notes and have that knowledge for later on, we encourage you to do that. Come and audit a class.
Yeah.
See if it's for you, but I think it will be.
Oh, yeah.
So let's just say that I want to do that. Let's just say that I'm 53 years old and I've just retired from the Army, and I serve maybe as a chaplain during that time, and I want to get really involved in ministry, and I want to help the local body that I'm in. And I start taking these classes. I can take multiple classes at a time, can I not?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I can expedite this process if I'm
Absolutely.
retired. Okay, then I can receive that certification. But let me ask this question. What if I want to go to a university? Can I go to a university and carry those with me, or do those
Yes.
transfer at all? Or
Yes. We have an agreement with 4 of the Brotherhood schools, Freed-Hardeman University, Faulkner University, Amherst University, and Heritage. And all of the credits that you accrue with GSOP will transfer over to those colleges. We have an agreement with them, the way that we have our school set up and the people that we have teaching class for us, which, by the way, all must be either masters, must have their master's degree, or be under the tutelage of someone with their master's degree, in which all of our campuses, we have that in place. And our credits will transfer over, and vice versa. Say, for example, you went for a year to Faulkner, and you realized that I don't want to be away from home. I want to live close to home. But you took a full year of credits at Faulkner. We will accept those Bible credits, because that's what we do. We will accept those Bible credits that you earned at Faulkner or Freed-Hardeman or Amherst or Heritage, and we will transfer those over, and you'll be that much further ahead in your certificate with us. So it works both ways.
okay. Tate, you remember when we were kids and you and Devin replaced the headlamp on your Civic, I think it was?
Oh, yeah.
And your daddy was like, how did Daddy go about it?
We were out there. We had the bumper off on the ground, and Dad comes out, and his eyes got really big, and he said, if I were you, I would go ahead and put it back the way you found it. And he said, and I'd let somebody knows what they're doing.
So let's translate that to preaching. Can anybody just get up on a Sunday and preach?
No.
Well,
I mean, you can, but
Not
it's
well.
always good to have more tools and more training and more knowledge. And it's kind of like when I first started preaching, I watched my first chapel speech, and I thought, who is this gentleman? Bless his heart.
Yeah.
You know, because
Falling all over herself.
I didn't have any type of knowledge. I mean, I was just a new babe in the preaching world, and I haven't come to anything yet, but I just know that it's always good. It's like any other field, no doubt. I mean, the more training you have, the better you're going to be.
so it's preacher training. It's like people have asked me, what's the difference in going to a university rather than going to a preaching school? And both are equally important for whatever roles we're in. But I tell people, it's like if you were to go to university and learn to preach, for me, at my experience, it was like going to, if I'm an auto mechanic, let's say that I get a little bit of training in all sorts of the auto field. But if I want to go to preaching school, that's more specific, or as Daddy would say, Pacific. That's more Pacific, directed toward the art and the craft of preaching. Yeah, I mean, it's like a surgeon. If you were to go to a brain surgeon, you're not going to go to a toenail doctor. You know, you want to go to a guy who has given me his best training. He's got the steadiest hands.
Yeah.
Chuck, let's say that I'm 14 years old. Can I take classes?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, we encourage that because of our agreement with those 4 schools. We encourage young men to come, and if they decide they're going to go somewhere else, but we have had young men that have come aboard as early as 14, 15 years old. You know your abilities better than we do, but we want to talk with you, especially talk with your parents, let you know what's going to be going on, because this is at a university level study. We want to make sure you can handle the workload, because that's important. But if the way that we look at it is this: if you're looking at coming aboard and taking classes with us, you're probably already a little bit more, maybe more mature than many people anyway, and that's something we're always looking for. But absolutely, if you're 14, 15 years old and say, "Hey, listen, I may be a little far off from getting into preaching school, but I really would like to take classes," we certainly want you to do that. We would love for you to come aboard. And this is the great thing about it is because of your inability to drive a car at 14 years old, you can't drive to the campus. Mom
I
may
can do
not-
what I want.
That's right. That's right. And mom may say, "Hey, listen, I can't take you, but if you've got a laptop," which I don't know, a 14-year-old or 15-year-old doesn't have a laptop or some sort of a device. You can absolutely sit in on all those classes. You can take them for credit, and you can do the work, and you can get your certificate. As a matter of fact, I'll issue an invitation. I would love for the youngest graduate from the Georgia School of Preaching to go ahead and fill out that enrollment form right now. Get your foot in the door. Get your name on the paper and get into class. And I would like to see our youngest graduate go ahead. I'd like for him or her. Again, this is for the ladies too. I'd like for them to go ahead and get their name in that piece of paper, and I'd love to be handing that to you in 2 or 3 years.
I have a question, and this just pricked my thought. What if, because y'all homeschool you girls?
Yes.
Okay, and Mac's fixing to be done at McKenzie. She's about to be done at Freed.
Yes.
And then Peyton's fixing to go to Kennesaw State.
Gonna go to Kennesaw State. Yes.
Okay, well, let me ask this question. I wonder if I want to incorporate any of the GSOP classes into my homeschool curriculum. I wonder if that would be doable. And I'm just asking because I don't know.
Oh, absolutely. And the great thing about homeschooling is the curriculum. You get to pick your curriculum. You get to establish your own curriculum. And most people I know, especially members of the church who are doing homeschooling, they have a Bible is typically a pretty good portion of their curriculum. And there are several classes that are absolutely fantastic, and they would be good to incorporate into a homeschool curriculum. We've got the 4 classes, there's 5 classes that you have to take as soon as you come aboard. We want you to get those out of the way. And all 5 of those classes would be very good classes to incorporate into a curriculum because they're an overview of a lot of things. One is library methods, which is typically something that you have to take if you're going to be especially getting into the preaching aspect of it. But for example, intro to Old Testament, intro to New Testament, hermeneutics.
There he is again, Herman.
He keeps popping up. It's like Leroy was here, or Kilroy was here. And then we've got Christian ethics, and all 4 of those would be fantastic for a homeschool curriculum.
So not only am I going to get this in my homeschool if I choose to do that, but I'll also be able to get these credits for the school.
Yes.
Which would also transfer into a college degree.
Yes.
What are y'all doing over there? Y'all selling stuff like hot butter.
I know.
That's good stuff. Let me ask this. I just wish there was a camp that my kids could go to, that would be specific, that's in ministry, that's close to here in Georgia, that you guys could do, sometime maybe around the 1st of June. That would be ideal before the other camps get really started.
Yes. Great minds think alike. And we have established a camp exactly for that. It is sponsored by GSOP. It is called Legion Camp. And the idea that Legion, when you've got a large group of people all with single-minded purpose, they are essentially a legion, and that's what we are. So June 2nd through the 5th of this year, in the beautiful mountains of North Georgia, on the campus of Camp Watoga. We have
Sound effects are wonderful.
I'll tell you what does this one do?
Buttons.
And shiny, and they're shiny. We have a camp that is set up. It is our inaugural year, and it is for high schoolers only. And I know that's going to cut out a lot of folks, and we got a lot of people who are probably, oh man, why can't I come? We're trying to keep this for high schoolers, kids that are right in that age range where entry to GSOP and taking classes with GSOP might be on their horizon. And it is going to be a little different. This is not your typical summer camp. This is going to be very much focused on biblical issues, biblical topics. We're learning how to put together talks and sermons, so that there's something for the guys and for the girls. This is for boys and girls both, high schoolers only. And again, if you go to legion.camp.
That's too hard.
I know. I'll spell it out. Legion.camp, Legion.camp, and that is where our website, and there's a page for enrollment, and we'd love for you to sign up and come and be with us. This is going to be the 2nd through the 5th, which is a Sunday afternoon. We'll get together, have some fun with each other, get to know one another, have some lunch and some supper, have some devotional, and then Monday and Tuesday is a little bit more intensive. We're going to have fun. This is not... You're not going to be sitting in a windowless classroom, slumped over a textbook, and dressed up in your suit, and that's not the way this is. What we're trying to do is we're trying to do the stuff that we would do maybe with GSOP, but in a much more beautiful environment. I love our building, but sitting around in the North Georgia mountains is far preferable.
Way gooder.
Yeah, way gooder. So we will be doing that for Monday and Tuesday, and then Wednesday we will get up, have some breakfast. Hand out some diplomas, exchange Instagram accounts, and get to know everybody again, and then everybody will go back home, and then we'll do it again next year.
Yeah. One of the things that may hinder our youth in getting into ministry is they realize that they're in a small minority. That because you think about it, I remember one preacher told me, he said there was only one David that went into the valley of all the army. And so you think about it in a building, I mean, if our buildings are several hundred, how many of them are actually going to preach the gospel for their life? So one of the things that might hinder our kids from going to the field of preaching or ministry or mission work or whatever is they think, because, I mean, teenagers, let's think about it, we want to be included. We want to be in a group. We don't want to be alone. And so this is a camp that allows kids that say, you know what, I want to get into ministry, even though it may not be popular. I want to devote myself to this. I don't know what that looks like, but I want to go to some place where I can get a taste with other people who want to do that. Because I remember, Tate, one of the things that I cherished the most about Memphis was the brotherhood that you had there.
Yeah.
The daily chapel sings and, that sort of stuff that you're locking shields with people of like-minded. The faith brings us all together, but there's also a small minority who are willing to go the extra, do the work in this field. And but anyway, we just wanted to kind of bring that on and advertise the school.
I had a Bible relative question.
Okay.
And do you think there is a great need for preachers? And I'll put that in quotations.
Yes, I will tell you that at least 2 or 3 churches are looking for preachers virtually every month. I will get a phone call or I will get an email. We will get a voicemail here at the church building, and our church secretary will say, "Could you please contact this person?" And it is someone who they're losing their preacher for various reasons, and there's a lot of different reasons that the preachers step away from the work. Sometimes I'm too old, and society's changing too much, and it's time for me to bow out and for a younger man to come in and take my place. Sometimes it's health wise, various reasons, but we get requests. Do you know of anybody? Can you turn us on to somebody that may be interested in the work? And this is all over the place.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to remember, and we talked about this the other day. I don't know how many counties in the state of Georgia are without a congregation.
Yeah.
For various reasons, but all of those counties have members of the Lord's church in them, but there is no campus. Yeah. There is no church or congregation, and there is no preacher. The school was started on that premise, is trying to train preachers to go into the state of Georgia. But not everybody's going to be in the state of Georgia. A lot of our students are elsewhere, so the the fields are white unto harvest, and unfortunately, the laborers are becoming fewer.
That's what I was going to quote. And the reason I asked you that was I had a preacher tell me that one time. He said, the world has enough preachers. And what he said, we don't have enough sound preachers. And I think that's one of the great things, whether you want to preach or not, congregations will be benefited the more they know of the Word of God.
Absolutely.
Members will. They'll be more educated. They'll be more ready to rightly divide the Word. They'll be book, chapter, and verse people. And the same thing for preachers. Preachers will be much better off the more knowledge they have. Jake, you can say the same thing. There was guys who would come to Memphis who were actually teaching false when they came. They came and learned the truth of what God's Word says, not not Memphis, but God's Word said, and they changed.
Yes.
Yeah. And they were very, very powerful preachers, and that takes an honest person to do that. But
when I was in South Georgia, we opened up a campus, and we would have, I think our first night we might have had 50 or 60 students there. And that wasn't always the case. Sometimes I think our least class might have had 15 or 16 then.
Yeah.
And but down there, that was a successful thing, and it was a successful work. And I think we converted 5 or 6, because I would make these little placards, these voter signs, or run, whoever's running for local sheriff. I would make GSOP and advertise it and put it up like in front of the schools and on certain, busy roads. And we'd have people in the community come to class and just sit in class. Yeah. And let's just say that I'm not wanting to preach per se. I can get a biblical certificate. But let me ask you this. I serve as an elder. Is there something that's designed, not just for biblical studies, but is there an elder's tract?
Yes.
Or is there a leadership tract? Or what's involved in that?
We have, the school has actually 4 certificates that we award. And the one, that, of course, that's been around the longest is the preaching certificate. Several years ago, we realized that we had a great many people who would like to take more Bible studies. So we introduced the Biblical Study Certificate, and that's why it became the Georgia School of Preaching and Biblical Studies. Over the last couple of years, we have actually added 2 more tracks. We have one that's church leadership, and what we're looking for, and I'll say this, I believe that as important as it is to train preachers, it is possibly equally, maybe even more important to train elders and deacons. The elders hold the reins to the church, so to speak, and I don't want to speak out of turn in regards to that, but they are the shepherds of Christ on this earth, and it's unfortunate the lack of training oftentimes elders get. They want the work, but they don't know what the work of an elder is, and we don't often talk about that. We always preach the sermons. We're getting ready to install elders, so we have a 6-month study about what elders are, but that's all very well and good, and we need to do that. But when an elder actually takes on that reign, he is installed, so to speak. He has become a preacher, or he's become an elder. Now what do I do? And they're all of these things are foisted off on them. There's this disagreement, there's this issue, and they don't have the tools to deal with the work of being an elder. They have the desire, they fit the qualifications, but they don't have the skills and the training. And it's as much a skills and training thing as it is with anything else. That's for our our church leadership track. We also have a missions track that's just been established, and our campus at Forest Park, which is the Forest Park just south of Atlanta, was that Lake City? Is actually our campus that has devoted their time to missions. They just finished up one. Actually, David Decker taught it on legal issues in regards to, and cultures in regards to mission work. So if you're going into Central Africa, these are some things that you might have to deal with if you get there. This is how you deal with local government. These are ethical and moral and legal issues that you have to deal with mission. So we have 4 tracks. All of them are intensive. You're going to know your stuff when you get done with them. So all of those are available to everybody. And I will tell you this: we have women who take the preaching studies courses. We do not award preaching certificates to women in view of Scripture, but the idea of being able to discern certain things about preaching, be a good preacher's wife. Hey, I need to know some things. The life and work of a preacher is not just the work of the preacher; it's the work of the preacher and the preacher's wife. So she needs to know these things as well. So all of our classes are open for everyone. The only ones that are not are sermon preparation and delivery, and those are exclusively for the guys. But other than that,
It's interesting. That's good for Forest Park. They have been a mission-minded church for as long as I've known them.
big time.
They have a missions forum every year, and so that's great that people can come to Forest Park in Lake City and sit under that campus and take those classes and then I mean, at the missions forum, I don't know how many missionaries they have come in and talk and discuss, and anyway, so that's good work. That's good stuff. We appreciate everybody for tuning in today, and I don't have any much else to say, Tater.
All I know is it'll benefit you. I know my spiritual life took off like a rocket the more I started studying, and that's the only way it comes.
Well, what's funny is that you have somebody that will come up will have never preached a day in their life, and they will tell you how to preach, preacher.
Yeah.
And it's like, why don't you take these classes and sit under here for a little while and be humbled like I was humbled.
It'll benefit you.
Yeah,
It will.
It will. You'll learn some things.
I think there are people who it's just an instinctive thing. I don't think it's genetic, but I believe there are people who just have the ability. They have the ability to stand in front of a group of people, and they have the ability to talk. And so what we want to do is, if you've got that ability, we want to take that and give you the right things to say.
Yeah,
it's not good. It's not enough just to be able to stand up and speak, because there are a boatload of TV
Toastmasters.
preachers. Oh man. What do they call them? They're not preachers. They're more they're feel good. They're going to make you feel better about everything, and that's not always the job of preachers, to make you feel better about everything. It's just give you hey, this is a problem, but this is the way you solve that problem.
Yeah.
So that's what we want to do: give you some tools.
One of the great things about preaching is it goes back to 1 John. I write these things that you do not sin. Okay, sometimes we preach that we do not sin, but we can't leave it there.
Right.
He says, I write these things that you do not sin, but if you do, you have an advocate, Jesus Christ the righteous. So that's a twofold thing of preaching, is that some preachers are just all about the rebuke, but they don't follow up with the grace of God. They don't seal the deal. Hey, you're in a bad situation, and some folks will leave you there, and it's like, no, Jesus don't leave us there. There may be some bad things in my life, but there's a way out. Right. And so that takes some training. That takes some knack to do and to help convey that. Help me with those delivery skills and all that sorts of stuff. Well, Chuck, we appreciate you coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
And we will see y'all next time.